Okay, by the time I went to my third optician, I'd actually left the job in the call centre because I was in just too much pain to continue, which was a real shame because I enjoyed that job. I went into another secretarial job because I thought that maybe getting up and doing photocopying every now and then would probably help if I wasn't totally tied to a computer. And it did seem to help a little bit, but then being in agony kicked in again, and by the time the optician in optician number 2 was so horribly rude to me, which by the way was another fairly major chain optician, I went to another one and I said, "Do you do glasses for convergence insufficiency?" "Oh yes," they said, "you know, we'll give you a test for it." So and at that point I didn't ask anything about long-sightedness because 2 opticians already had brushed it under the carpet, so I'd kind of given up that idea as silly nonsense perhaps. So I turn up at the optician and I explain the test that I've had at the hospital, which I didn't think was that good, and they said, "Dear, I know, the hospital's terrible, isn't it?" And they were all sympathetic and ready to help me, and I had the standard eye test again and a bit of a different test to see whether I had convergence insufficiency, which I did, possibly because I hadn't been aware of any problems like that before. It had probably been caused by the severe eye strain and the overworking of the eye muscles, I think, in hindsight. Anyway, they gave me some prism glasses, which helped to stop my eyes working so hard. And for a couple of weeks, I have to say they were the best thing since sliced bread. And then the pain started kicking in again. So I go back to the optician to see if there's anything they can do for me. And I'm kind of back and forth. You know, I'm going there with nothing much done. I went to my doctor really in tears about it, about the amount of pain I'm in, and he was, "Now listen, you've had your hospital test and it showed very clearly there was nothing wrong with your eyes." He was really that cross with me for even asking. So I turn up in real pain one day and I'm going, "Ow, it hurts," as you do. So they put some drops in my eyes to have a little look and see what might be wrong. And they're sort of like, "Oh, well, you've got very dry eyes. Take some hyperopia or artificial teardrops." Now again, I'm not particularly aware of having had dry eyes before that, and I think it was the amount of having to stare at stuff which was causing the dryness. My second test comes up with them. I talk about all the problems I'm having. By the time my third test comes up, and I think I have this one a little bit early. No, by the time my third test comes up, I've actually left the secretarial job in agony. I am working, but only for a very small amount, and I'm really not having much of a life because when I'm not working, I'm resting up in bed, which is completely ridiculous just because of eye strain. I'm not going out on a bright day. If I'm walking past railings or anything like that, I'm getting really dizzy. You know, I daren't have a bath sometimes because the water's so shiny. It actually makes me dizzy. And I don't want to faint in the bath. So on my third eye test with them, I kind of lay down the law. I've written a little description of how this is affecting me. It's making me tilt to one side. It's extremely hurting to read. And I'm having trouble looking downwards at anything. And I actually demonstrate to them, look, if I want to look through my glasses, I have to do this if I want to read. And their attitude is, yes, and what's the problem with that? Well, it turned out my glasses in the event were actually pointing upwards, which is in one of my other videos. So it was no wonder I had neck pain as well. So while I'm having my eye test, the optician's about to give me the eye test. I said, no, I gave you a piece of paper, which I'd written down all my problems on it. She hadn't even read it. So I pinned her down and made sure we went through that piece of paper together, because it's affecting my posture, my quality of life, everything. And she gave me the eye test as usual, and she kind of backed into a corner and said, well, you see, your eyes are like that. Like, she wasn't supposed to be saying that, I think. And I asked about the possibility of, well, can you know, get my glasses pointed down so that at least I don't have to bend double to look downwards. And she's sort of like, oh yes, I'll see if we can get someone to splay your glasses down. We should be able to do that. And I can tell you now that never ever happened. And I went back, because I really was not going to let this drop. Back I went. The optical assistant there, who turned out to be a fat man with no willy, said he could get me something called recumbent lenses to help me look downwards. And he said, well, they only do them in Cardiff, blah-de-blah. Meanwhile, I'd managed to ring the store in Cardiff, found out that they do these glasses called bed glasses, which, if you've seen them, they're sort of like little boxes on your glasses, and they're a 45-degree angle, so you can sit like this and read a book, which is here, and it's often used for people with mobility problems. Now, they had a pair. They were going to let me have them too. And then the little fat man with no willy managed to actually stop this going through. And then he went on holiday for 2 weeks, leaving me without any glasses to help me, any means of getting them. And I finally caught up with him. I said, you weren't there. Yeah, well, I was away, wasn't I? That was his attitude. And I said, look, I'm in real pain. I can't look downwards. I can't do anything, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And his answer to me was, well, Ms. Black Squareable, do you really want to wear big ladies' glasses? If you're in that much pain, you don't care. But to splay a pair of glasses down is simple. You just use a pair of is it pliers or whatever you bend wire with. Opticians do it all the time. I was promised that simple thing, it didn't happen. I mean, the recumbent lens is nonsense. Recumbent lenses are actually what you put on the front of motorbikes. You know, bikers have these fancy lenses so they can see what's behind them. So that was really what happened with all the opticians, and after that I did find a new optician. Things did get better, but before that happened I was a week away from being tested for epilepsy of all things, which, you know, I obviously do not have, but the eye strain had just been allowed to get so bad. I'd lost 2 perfectly good jobs in the meantime. I could barely function because of it, and I went through all these opticians who just didn't care, were completely obstructive, and yes, so in my view, this is how large, not all opticians, but certainly large companies are, basically.